a bit and try to enjoy this, because this is a soft skills lecture. It's a soft skills course, but it's very important when you are doing science to learn how to communicate properly. Yeah, normally we think that we know how to communicate our ideas and how to write papers and how to make a talk and everything, but it's not true. At the end of the day, you need to learn some techniques about how we can make this better. So this is the idea of this lecture today, tomorrow, and the day after. Okay, this is me. I am a professor at the University of Chile. We have several students of us are here. I lead the group of Amazing Quantum at the University of Chile, which is a team that has a laboratory, so experimental physics, but also theoretical physics. We have to do both to survive and to get the money to build the lab. So this is it. And I also do a lot of outreach communication, okay? So I have this Instagram, which is very popular right now, where I show like things about physics and also like the behind the scenes of the lab, which is very interesting because people don't know how the laser works or how like our Legos in the lab, the mirrors, the EOMs, AOMs, the fibers. So it's really nice to show that to the people. And also I fight a lot against against this quantum healing stuff that you see everywhere now in social media, which is terrible. So I think it's also like mandatory for us to try to fight a bit this misinformation. We will talk about this also in this lecture, the responsibility that we do have as a scientist to be there first, and the second, not be sensationalist with our own work. This is something very important that we will discuss here. And so I do a lot of these things. I give talks and stuff like that. I have a podcast also, which is called Let's Get Physical. You can find it in SoundCloud and in Spotify. But we record like 2 seasons, and now it's over. So last week was the last chapter of the podcast. And in Chile, we also had this year and the year before that a project that was called the Quantum Box, and was a project where we were trying to mix some art with science and make like an immersive experience for people in this quantum box. It was a very nice, also, this is another way to communicate in science. This is the thing that I want to highlight, that there's many ways to communicate science. So I spent, well, that's the podcast up there. I spent a lot of my own resources in trying to do scientific communication better, like not just like a kind of a favor to people, but actually to professionalize it. So this is a kind of images that I asked to designers to build for science communication, especially for the general public. So for instance, that one is supposed to be the wave-particle duality. So it's like a photon or an electron looking to the mirror and see this other like nature or secret identity or whatever. And also sometimes when I can, because this is way more expensive, but I hire people that are called like, they record your talk in real time, and they make these very beautiful like schemes of your talk. So this is really nice, and it's done by a Chilean designer, okay? So one of the main things that I want you to keep in mind during this lecture is that science that is not communicate, does not build bridges, does not inspire minds, and does not generate any change. And this is important, you see, because at the end of the day, for many years, at least in Latam, I don't know exactly in Europe or in the US, but here it was not so well seen when the academics professor went to do some outreach activities. It was considered like a kind of a charity, you see? Okay, why I am not in my lab producing my important papers? Then, with that time, because the project, I have to feel like a box in the project saying, I have to do outreach, okay, I went to give a talk, you see? So these kind of things, but at the end of the day, we need to inspire more people into science, and this is important. And one way to do that is to start having conversations with the other people that is not, they do not, obviously, do not have the same like formation as you do. They do not study physics. Of course, they do not have a master or a PhD degree, but still they are very interested in science. And it's important from us to go and to try to build this bridge with them and try to make them part of this journey of about that is building and making science, okay? So this is one of the things that we have to have in mind. And science is done in broken English. This is a phrase that I love. I heard it before from Pablo Solano. We have a lot of students from Pablo Solano here, and he heard it from Luis Orozco and so on. But this is very true, okay? I think that probably, so most of you are here from LATAM, and I didn't grow up in an English environment, in a super private school with really high English level. I have to learn by myself. You can ask Michelle. My first days in France was terrible. I had to learn like there how to communicate better in English. It was not my native language, of course, and then I have to learn French, which is still so-so. But at the end of the day, it's way more than the language that you use. You can speak a perfect English and still fail in communicating your science. This is the thing. And you need to learn skills about how to do this better. Okay, so the first thing is an overview of the importance of the scientific communication. By definition, the purpose of scientific communication refers to the sharing of research findings, methodologies, theories within the scientific community and to the broader public. So you have here two separated things, right? One thing is to write to a person, like a referee, for instance, for a journal, that they know the technical stuff that you are doing in your lab, in your team, or whatever. And then you have this other public, which is the general public, that they don't know exactly. They just hear some reels in Instagram or some, like, go back and forth, some words, but they don't know. They do not have the formation as you. And then you want to try to explain what for you has taken 10 years, 12 years of formation in a talk of half an hour. So it's really hard to make that possible in a very responsible way. So this is like the two like audience that we will refer in this lecture. And also it serves as a foundation of advancing science as new discoveries are built upon previous research. And this is also very important. It's like the typical like phrase that you hear that science is built upon another scientific shoulder, like you are building the scientists. So of course you need papers in that sense because you know what the other people around the globe are doing in your field, and then you can advance or you can have like decision making in your own team. Okay, we will go there, or this team is going faster than us, so we go in this other direction, so on. So it's important this to communicate science in that way. Okay, science, when you communicate science, has to be clear and effective. So here there are things that we have to avoid. For example, ambiguous communication, writing on oral, can lead to misunderstandings and misinterpretations, which is what is happening right now in social media in general. Clear communication ensures that research findings are understood as intended, maintaining the integrity of the results. So this is very important that when you are trying to communicate what you did, of course, you can try to, well, it's not the paper, but to general public or to a press note. You want to try to find a way to lower the level, to make it appealing for the audience, but without losing what you really did, okay? So a clear communication also means using the right words. We want to use the right words and not just like bombo words. And the last one, which is very important, we want to avoid sensationalism. And here we have a lot to do, even in our community. This is not just people selling science when it's not science. I mean our community, okay? Why? Because sensationalism is the act of presenting news or information in a way that provokes a strong interest. It's like, wow, I don't know if you have heard that, but in Chile, we have problems on this. And then in some social media or news, you can find these these titles of like Chilean physicists discover how to, I don't know, to predict earthquakes. And you know it's not true. I mean, if it were true, then you will be receiving the first Nobel in Chile because of your funding. So you know it's not true. But you need to have like a big title to sell the thing because people will start reading your stuff, like normal people, not scientific community. But this, at the end of the day, this is wrong because you are not teaching exactly what you have really done. And at the end, you see like the complete news, and you say, okay, but this is not what is reflected in the title. And this also happens in papers. You in papers also can have a huge title, and then you see the paper, the abstract, and you say, what happened? Okay, so this is happening in different levels, but at the end it's the same idea. You want to sell something because you want to be sensationalistic because, I don't know, something happened inside your mind that this is a good way of communicating science, but at the end it's not. Highlighting the current age of rapid information dissemination, where attention-grabbing headlines can become viral. In that scenario, you need to pay a lot of attention on this. And this is a problem when you start, for example, like communicating with journalism. It's very hard, that communication, because you have to like tell them, this is what I did, and I don't want you to change what I did to something that you can sell better. And this communication is hard because sometimes from the other side, they tell you back like, okay, but if I don't do that, no one will read what you did. So it's a problem, you see? So I'm not saying that you need to, of course, it's good to find appealing words on that, because at the end of the day, you want the audience to read what you have done. This is true, but you don't want to lie to them. Because then, which kind of scientist you are if you are lying to the own audience that allows you to do science? Because at the end of the day, we use their taxes, right, to do what we do. So it's more tricky than that. The impact of sensationalism on science discoveries. Okay, so you can have the misrepresentation, public mistrust, because at the end you can like generate this, which is very like emotional at the beginning, right? But at the end, people will realize that these news are not real. And at the end of the day, you will generate a mistrust of the audience that you were seeking to reach. You see? So we need to be very careful of that. And also, this last point for me is also very important, because at the end of the day, you are like removing the importance of your own work. Your work is important. Normally, when you try to do some news in some for public audience, right? And you want to explain your paper, for instance, your paper is already published. It's a good result. So why don't you just try to make it appealing in a honest way? And you want to like use words like fancy words to describe something that you did not do. So I don't know if you follow me, but at the end, this is the idea, and at the end, it hides what is really happening, for instance, in your country, in your team, or in your university, because then the public gets this idea that in Chile there are people trying to solve or predicting earthquake. And it's not true. We are not. You see? So this is the thing. Now, the importance of accurate science communications here. While sensationalism may grab attention in the short term, accurate and clear communication benefits society in the long run. And this is important too. Of course, you want to have like people interested in your work and what you do, but it cannot be an expense of lying to them or to cover what you really did. Okay. And in my opinion, in the long term, we truly help educating the community by making the effort to lower your findings in a general public language, but without lying about what you have done. Okay. So that being said, that is like the basic of everything that we will learn in this lecture. We will have, if I have all the time, 3 parts of this lecture. First, we will try to cover what is writing to communicate science, but you will see that most of the things that we will see here, they do also apply to oral communication. And then we will see the second part, which is oral communication, and then the third one, which is a bit more about how you structure a paper. I know that some of you already have this kind of soft skills training here in Brazil, but in Chile, most of the people don't, for instance, and I guess it's the same in other countries, so we will cover that also. So hopefully the idea will be to cover these three parts today, and then tomorrow to work hands-on scientific communication, so that you try to make your own presentation, like 3 minutes presentation, where you can try to communicate with the partners what is the broad problem, the narrow problem, what you did, the perspectives of what you have done. So we will work on that tomorrow, and then on Thursday, the idea will be for some of you to present up here what you have done for this small presentation. So people, for example, that you brought some posters, you can use your own posters. This is okay. Or if you didn't bring any poster, just pick up any paper and try to do the same. What is the broad problem? What is the narrow problem? And how you present this in 3 minutes. 3 minutes, because otherwise it's impossible. We won't be able to cover all of you, but the people that want, they can try. Okay, so the part one will be about writing to communicate science. So idea about writing that are good to get rid of, that writing is a basic skill, yes, but this doesn't mean that you know how to write to communicate science. This is a huge different thing, and we have, I don't know if this happens also here in Brazil, but in Chile, the newest generation of students, they clearly have a problem about writing and communicating stuff. Like from the very beginning, when you have to do some kind of like a homework in form, I don't know how to say that, but and then you see like the conducted idea, and it's a mess, and they do not know how to communicate, even if they are in the best university of the country. So we have a problem about writing, and people think that they know how to write, and it's not true. You learn to write in the school or the university? No, it's not true either. No, you think that you did, but you don't. And you write to communicate your ideas and thoughts? No, not in scientific communication. When you are writing, well, we will see, but you want to add value to your ideas, to your findings, and then for that you need a strategy to communicate them and to make it appealing to another person. You want to convince another person what you have done is really interesting, that was the grant that you got was a very good investment for the country because look at what I did. So it's way more than just communicating in the sense of I will just tell you my ideas, okay? So characteristics of good writing, so it has to be organized and clear. This is the very beginning. It has to be persuasive. We want to persuade the other person, and it has to be valuable. We need to add value to whatever we are trying to communicate in both in writing and also in oral communication. Bad practices are, for example, using writing only to help ourselves to think. I know that this might be something that you do. I do, for example, if I don't write down my ideas and stuff like that, it doesn't like hold in my mind. So I do that all the time. But no, when I have to present like an opinion column or news for some journalist or a paper. So of course it has different levels to evolution and maturity of what you are trying to write or to communicate. And also this is another bad practice, it's just describing your work. Is not. You are not, when you are writing a paper, you don't want just to describe what you did. You want to communicate way more than that, and for that, even at a thesis, when you are writing your thesis, then maybe you have some space to really communicate what you really did and the efforts that you have in the way. Okay, but it's not the case like in a paper, in a talk. Some general scientific writing. So the first thing is that you have to know your audience. This is the first thing. If someone asks you to give a talk, for example, in a conference, in a school like this one, or to a school, a public school like a high school or whatever, or in a kindergarten, or I don't know, or politicians, whatever. But you need to know your audience. You cannot just copy-paste your same talk to other people and just hope by magic that you will reach this new audience that you have never interacted with before, or you don't know how to communicate with them. They don't know exactly the words that you are using or the terminology or whatever. So you need to know your audience. So when someone asks you to give a talk or to write something, it could happen for you like in the future that some journalist or newspaper ask you to write an opinion, column opinion about quantum computing. Then you need to, the first question is, what is the scope? What is the audience? What is the objective of this thing that you are asking me to write? So this is an important thing. So more or less you have like this kind of box where you have this audience that you have to ask what the audience is. But besides that, then you have a structure. So you want to present the audience the problem that you are solving. This is the thing. You are like building up the general like aspect on why people should get interested in what you are presenting them. So you need to broaden the problem. What is the problem and why you are spending 2, 3, 5 years for PhD, master to solve that problem. Okay? So you have a problem, an issue, you have a solution, you have something that you said, but I thought in something that you didn't before. And then you explain what is your thesis about and everything, or your paper or whatever. Then you can also mix between the benefits of what you are trying to do, or also the so what that I will explain in the next slide. But sometimes it's not just good about talking about the benefits of something that you are doing. It's more practical to try to cover what happens if you don't do it, like the risk of not doing what you're doing, okay? Something like that. So tip for creating a value in your scientific communication. So first, you need to acknowledge the reader community or also the oral community. So the thing is that what you have to think in your mind is that I know what you are thinking, but you are wrong. This is the thing that you want to try to communicate, right? So show the conflict or challenge of problem, and they are wrong, okay? Then show the cost-benefit of not solving or not solving the issue, and that's why it should matter for everyone or for the country or whatever. This is important. For example, in 2024, we were asked, like 8 scientists in Chile to try to write a roadmap of quantum technologies in Chile. And we were together with Steve and other scientists. And of course, then you need to change completely the way of presenting your idea. Because if we were just to present, okay, quantum computing is good because in some future they will help you to, I don't know, have to personalize medicines or drugs or whatever, this is not enough. So what we have tried in that commission was to change the way of presenting our idea, and it was, what if the cost is to Chile if we do not invest in this? And this changed completely the landscape of politicians, especially for politicians, because they want Chile to shine and blah, 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 blah. So when you present them the risk of not doing that and that you will not shine as everyone else, then it becomes appealing for them. Okay, then we need to do something. It's true. We need to do something like this, like that, and to have like a plan for the country in order to make this possible. Okay, so I can tell you later about what we have done in that sense. We try to use a triangular structure to tell the story. We will go into some details later about that. But the point is that something that you have to keep in mind, okay, that is no matter where the reader stops reading, they should walk away with a clear idea of your work. This is something that I use a lot, both writing my papers or giving talks, or also writing for a public audience or giving talks for public audience. Like what happens if some of you already fall asleep or you are already in your WhatsApp? What will you take from my talk? Will you take the general idea that I wanted to present, or you will be lost in the 2 minutes? So what I try to do, that we will see this in the next part of this class, but I try to summarize somehow the appealing of the talk in the first 5 minutes. And then what I do is to explain how I did what I did in this rest of the time of the talk. And like that, if someone is lost or is sleeping or whatever, they already knew what I wanted to show to them. You see? So this is, in my opinion, is a very good technique for that. So scientific writing for papers, so we will focus here a bit more on papers, but it's not so different about giving oral presentation and general public stuff. So you want to have tips to how to present your ideas better. So this is like a pyramidal structure, but at the end it's a bit broader again. Okay, we will explain that. But so you need to present the broader problem, what it's about, why you are, for example, if you have a quantum communication team, why you are invested on that? What is the big picture? What is the broader problem that the community needs to solve and advance in quantum communication? This is the broader picture. Then the narrow problem can be, okay, so this is the broader picture. I cannot solve this, but I can solve this part of this broader picture, and this is my narrow problem. So I don't know. So we need to have some network, a quantum network between one building and the other because we want to, I don't know, create the first network of quantum safe at the university connection, whatever. So you like narrow your scope. And then you present your central message, okay? What's your contribution? Okay, so this was the big problem, the broader problem. This is the narrow problem. And now here I come with my team, with my whatever, and we are like solving this problem, which is a small problem of this big, broader picture. And we are trying to do this to solve this problem. And you present your findings. So in the paper, it's very clear. In a paper, you will see first like a first paragraph, which is normally, it should be the broader problem. Then you will see a second paragraph, which should be the narrow problem. There you are like going back. And then at some point, the phrase, in this paper, okay, then is when you present what you have done to solve this problem. And then you describe a bit, but at some point also, especially when you are communicating like in oral public, you also need to go back, okay, and this, what I have done opens the path for new whatever stuff because I want to connect back to the broader problem. You see? So it is like this, but at the end, it opens back again because you need to connect with your first ideas that you were trying to communicate in the first place. So then you have the key findings that I already said and the key implications, okay? And at the end of the day, you are trying to add value with the last two, especially with the last two, which is findings, implications. You are trying to add value to what you did. And that's why in the last part of the abstracts, for instance, or in the conclusions, you always have these fancy phrases saying, okay, this opened the path for I don't know what. And it's okay because you need to connect back and you need, again, to build the value of what you have done, okay? This is the thing. So, tips for writing concisely. So keep sentence short. This is a huge problem, especially for us in LATAM. I am assuming that you don't have a British education in the school, but for like not normal in the sense of normal in the Gaussian, for normal people in the Gaussian, yeah. So you are tempted to write in English as you do it in Spanish or in Portuguese, and in Spanish at least we love to add words and fancy way of saying things and long sentences, like more like poetry than a scientific communication. And when you start to write your first paper, you will see like how to cut this, cut that, especially when you bring your first draft to your supervisor. I don't know, I know that not all the supervisors do that. In the US, when I was doing my postdoc at the University of Maryland, it was called the paper torture. So you bring your first draft to your supervisor, and then you go word by word. This is out. Why did you write what? Out. And this is the paper torture. It takes a few weeks, but at the end of the day, you learn a lot of how to communicate science. For this, for example, in my PhD, Michel left, but when I was writing my thesis in France, this was a very complicated thing to me because I really I like to communicate from the very beginning since I was a little girl. I like to communicate and I like to write things and I like to give talks and stuff like that, but in Spanish. And that was the first time that I have to write some like decent piece of document in technical English, and my supervisor, not Michel, but Jean-Michel, the other one in the last picture that he showed, he was, okay, Carla, this is horrible. I mean, you need to cut all of it. And it was really, it was a bit traumatizing, but it was good, because at the end, it was true. I didn't know how to write in English this scientific reporting, so to say. Okay, so in English, we try to keep the sentence short. One sentence, one idea. One paragraph, one idea. Okay, this is the main idea of what I'm trying to explain. Eliminate unnecessary words, like focus on what is truly adds value. We will see this in this lecture, but we try to avoid at some point fancy words like this is very important. This is no. So if it's very important, then use another word, remarkable. But you see, you need to try to avoid these words that are very fancy. But at the end of the day, if you take it out, the papers stay as it is. So you were not really adding something important to your presentation. Okay. Avoid jargon, yes. Show simple, precise language. Your reader will understand. Use consistent terminology. Don't change terms on the same for the same concept. This is obviously in a paper. If you are defining at the very beginning that the electromagnetic field is electric magnetic field, okay, like this abbreviation, then don't change it at the half of the paper, because otherwise you get completely lost, and you do not know if you have defined a new electric field or what happened in between. So you need to do that, and also avoid redundancy. This is something that is hard to do at the beginning, because since you want to add value to what you have done, it's normal at the beginning when you are writing your first paper or your thesis that you do like déjà vus, like this in the writing. This is bad. But it's normal at the very beginning, and you need to learn how to avoid this back and forth, because it's really tiring for the people that later will read your thesis, that the commission, or of course the referee will have no mercy, but I'm talking about the commission in this case. They will really try to make an effort, but at some point, if the attention of the referee, of the commissioner goes really on how you are writing the stuff and not the physics that you want to show, this is a problem. You see? So you need to try to use the best tips that you can to have a good and effective writing and communicating science. We prefer verb over nouns. So instead of, for example, we said we analyze, it's clearer than saying an analysis was performed. It's the same information at the end, but it's more clear in the first way. It's more direct, you see. Limit transitions. Okay, we use connector only when they improve the flow. So the flow in the scientific writing is very important. So this is something that you need to highlight all the time. The important thing is the flow. It's because of the flow, it's better for you to add another connector here. Okay, then go ahead. But if it's not useful for the flow, and at the end it's all the contrary, then it's not good, and you have to come back to some simple way of to communicating what you want to communicate. Read aloud clearly. This is something very important, and I recommend to all of you to do. Okay, maybe the thesis, the 100 pages is too much, but in the papers you can do that. You can do that. If you are like about to send your first draft, then you can try to read it aloud. If you are reading like confident or with a flow, and you, the one who wrote the thing, it's possible for you to read it aloud without any problem, probably it's good written. But if you are like, you are reading your own work and you are like, okay, no, this word not, okay, then you need to review the draft again and to try to change things to improve the flow of the information, okay? So the flow of reading takes priority over everything else. This is the important thing here. The other things that I give you in general in all these lectures are tips that I have learned. I also had soft skills training when I was doing my PhD in France, and I teach this course at the university. So at the end of the day, I gather a lot of tips that I have learned during my journey, but at the end are tips. So they are not completely like rules, but they are good to communicate science. But the important thing is the flow. The flow, it has to, the flow is priority above all. Okay, about the formatting guidelines. Okay, so write in active voice, okay, not passive. This is a kind of a rule, so to say. Write in third person plural. This is important. Like normally, even if the paper is just done by yourself, you still use the we, okay? Use present for general statements or ongoing work. This is like, I don't know if you have, when you read the papers and you read the part where in this work we have, so we are, this normally is in present. We analyze, I don't know what, we present, we demonstrate, but it's in present. And then when you go to the discussions, results, and in the results you can use past tense, and then in the outlook of discussion or future words or perspective, you normally change to the future. Okay, so they are like techniques of making this the best possible. Then tips for structuring a paragraph. So the idea is the same, like one paragraph, one idea. So for example, when I write my papers and I teach my students on how to do that, we try to write it by questions. So the first thing is that imagine the title and the take-home message, because your title and your abstract has to cover the take message that you want the people to take. I mean, if you want someone to look at your paper because you have found a new quantum gravity theory, so it has to be in your title, otherwise it's impossible to find. So you need to work on that, okay? So title, abstract. But after that, we normally focus on the figures, how the figures are responding to specific questions that you want the reader to get. Normally, a normal person will not read your paper unless it's very important for their field. What they will read is the title, the abstract, with lucky the figures, and then if this is interesting enough, they will go to the conclusion and then read the whole thing. But at the beginning, they won't do that. So it's very important, the title, the abstract, and the figures. The figures are super important in a paper, okay? But this is like the central idea. One paragraph, one idea. Try to aim for a paragraph between 100 and 200 words, no more than that. If you have in a sentence a lot of commas, then you have a problem. The idea will be just to have like a period, one comma in the beginning, but if you are using a lot of commas or like lines to explain your idea, probably you can do it better. The first and the last sentences are the most important, where you are like opening to the first like sentence in the introduction or the after is very important. Actually, in nature, you have like a guiding on how broad then this question or sentence or whatever has to be in the first two lines. So it is very important, okay? Ensures logical flow, move from old, like known things, known information to the new information. This is very obviously, but for example, it's a good way to think when you are writing your paper and, for example, you start, okay, so you finish your introduction and then you want to go to the methodology. It's hard at the beginning, okay, where I start my methodology. So the idea is that one, you need to go from some point where the people that is reading your work can hold, because I already know that, and then from there you present the new. If you present the new immediately, it's really hard for the reader to, okay, so where is the reference? Because I don't know about this topic. So it's a disaster. So it's good to start with something that the people know already, and then build the next, okay? Tips for editing. Okay, this is really funny. So the first draft that you do is a terrible thing, okay? It's a really bad document, and it's normal, okay? And you have the ways to improve your first draft, Hemingway was also saying this second phrase that was the most essential gift for a good writer is to built-in cheat detector, is just to recognize when you are getting wrong the communication. This is important because, as I said, when you are writing your first paper, especially the first one, or some paper that you have spent the last 3 years trying to trying to finish your work, so now finally the paper is there, and you are writing, of course you want to put as much value as you can, because for you has been like a baby to you, okay? And we understand that. But at the end of the day, that's not the good way of communicating, and you need to go back to low down a bit, and then try to recognize what about your own writing is shitty and does not apport to the final communication of your findings, okay? So it's important to recognize them. Leave time between writing and editing. This is important. This is really important. You can, finish a draft or a section or whatever, and it's important to then stop a bit, do whatever you want, or even put in the middle 1 or 2 days and then go back, because you will read it with a fresh mind and with a different mindset, and you will see, okay, no, this is wrong. And then you will start editing again, and it's way better. Change the format. This also works, okay, for some people. Changing the format works, like using a font, a larger font, or different colors, or print it out and see, and go like with a highlighter and write stuff. This also works a lot. And the last one is very important: ask for feedback. Of course, when you ask for feedback, you want someone who can really give you feedback, because if you are asking your body, your friend, and they will just tell you, oh, this is a great job, you did, it's not good for you. You need someone who can really give you feedback and has the liberty and the trust to tell you, this is wrong. O sea, you think that you're communicating this, and you are not communicating this, so you need to rewrite this part. As a referee, as I said, especially with papers, when your paper then goes to the referatus part of the publishing, they will not have mercy. So, and at the beginning, especially when it's your first paper, as you will probably face soon, you get very frustrated, because it's like your first thing, and you spend so much time doing that for a guy who doesn't know you, and come back and destroy the thing. Okay, it's really frustrating. So it's good if you can ask feedback before. It's good for in every stage, when you have, like, for example, another presentation coming, and for example, for a conference, if you were here to talk aloud about your findings, it's good for someone to listen to you before. If you have a paper that say in the JQI, when I was working in my postdoc, they have an internal referatum. So you were writing your paper, and then you have to choose 3 other professors, and they have to read your paper first. When these 3 guys allowed you to, like, good, green light, good to go, then you send the article to the journal, because it's important, the feedback. It's important on how other people can read your own work. But especially for the students, it's important to have someone that can really and truly tell you when you are wrong about something, okay? Words to avoid, this is important, okay? Words that are too informal, for example, construction, isn't, don't, whatever. When we say a bit, a lot, a bit, these are like forbidden words. They cannot be a bit, a lot in your paper. Kind of, sort of, okay, no. If you find words like this, you need to get rid of them. For example, I have seen other people that sometimes when they are writing thesis especially, they think that it's funny, but it's not funny. Like when say, okay, the reader can go and deeply the knowledge about this section. Say, no, this is a thesis. The thesis has to be auto-contained. So if you think that it's important to the reader to know something before reading your paragraph, put it there. You see? So you don't give more work to the reader to understand your own findings. So this is important. Okay, when you have too vague things, like things, stuff, a while, and so on, these kind of things you have to avoid. Too exaggerated words like always, never, must, really, this kind of thing, I can assure you, you can find a better way to say the same thing without these words so like exaggerated or so deterministically. So for example, when you want to say that this is the first time that someone does whatever, you don't say this is the first time. You say to our knowledge, this is the first time, and you see, so you can find ways to sound less like arrogant in that sense and still communicate the same message. So words are important in these kind of things. Too subjective. Also, this is what I was saying about this example of the thesis. When you think something is so obviously that you just say obviously, but it's not so obvious at the end. So if you need to use these words, then explain, okay? Well, straightforward and adjectives that in general express opinion rather than fact. This is important thing, okay? You don't want to express, there is a part on the paper where you can express a bit of your opinion in your findings. This is the discussion, but it's not your personal opinion from nowhere. It has to be based on evidence, okay? Overuse intensifiers like very, extremely, highly. You can find more appropriate words, okay? So in internet, or ChatGPT or whatever, you can find a lot of these tables. For instance, very bad, awful, very smart, intelligent, and these kind of synonyms of things that you want to say, okay? And as I say, this is especially important for us in the sense that we are not native English speakers. So it's normal that we don't have the same lexicon, I don't know how to say that, than in English in comparison to a native English speaker. So you need to learn this thing. Okay, so you can find on internet a lot of tables. I knew a professor, for example, in the JQI. He was just like, okay, take this summary of the words that you cannot use in the first draft that you will give back to me. Point. Period. So it was like there, you cannot use these words, and it was true. It was important. Okay. So I could go on with a lot of. A list of tips on how to do stuff, but at the end of the day, it's better to try to look at this for some minutes. So I will give you like, how to say, 3-4 minutes to read that. This is a example taken from Nature, and you will see how they are. This is an abstract, and how they build this flow of broaden, narrow, take-home message. And then the key findings, and then again broaden back to connect with the beginning. So just take a few minutes to read that. So in some journals they have this guidance where they say to you exactly how they want the abstract to be. So you can, well, I will send you, they will upload the lectures, the PDF later. So you can, so this is a good example, but this one is not so good example, for example. This is another abstract, and it's about kinetic drag friction. And for me, immediately, I see equations in an abstract, and I said, there is something wrong, because you want this to be broadened. Even if I don't study fluids dynamics, still I want to understand what you have done. But if you immediately in the abstract presents me formulas and stuff like that, or it's overwhelming for someone who is not in the field. And you don't want that to happen with your paper, okay? So you can read this later, and this is a very good example. That is I like a lot. This is the physics of a beer tapping. So everyone relates to this problem. So this is the first. This is very appealing, this example, because everyone knows what you're talking about. And then also the abstract is in my opinion, is well written also. Okay, so. Later you will get the PDF and you can read it by yourself. Okay. So doing science means taking part in a conversation. You need to kind of, so you are not like looking to the referee when they are going to read your article, but at the end you are having a conversation with them. And then you will receive their complaints or suggestions or whatever. So it's a kind of conversation, but in the not so fast, unfortunately, not so fast. But at the end you need to anticipate things, and that's good when you have a feedback a bit before, like when you have your own draft and then you send this draft to a friend, to another professor, whatever the stage you are, because then they can give you this feedback first, this conversation which is faster. Okay, you think that this is clear and it's not clear. It's true that you could follow this line or arguing about some topic, but actually this one is better, I think. This is important. For example, when in one of our papers we have we work. Of course, I work like a professor in the university. Besides all of this, I do. So we work in the generation of no Gaussian intense quantum light. And one of our favorite papers, which is a PRL in 2020, at the beginning of that paper, we were trying to focus the take-home message about how you do like a transition from classical to quantum fields. And we sent this work as with that line, like to 3 professors that we were confident on sending. And they said, the 3 of them, okay, no, don't do that. Go to this other direction, change a bit, because this topic is so broad and it has so different interpretation in people, like in our field. It might be hard, like for you then to get cited and to get seen. So it's better if you go this way, for example. And it was a very good suggestion, and the paper is really good. And at the end, we end up with what we wanted. So the idea now is to apply, of course, all these tips and create effective presentation. This is what we are going to do tomorrow. And I want to know if you have questions so far, because now in the last 40 minutes, we will see the techniques for the oral presentation. Okay. Do you have some questions up to now? Well, later, if you have, you just interrupt me, or or we talk in the coffee break. Okay. So this is the part 2. And here we will focus more on the techniques for a good oral presentation. So we will try to really focus on that. So you have one clear idea. This is the main thing. You want one clear idea that you want to communicate. One clear thread of the ideas. You have to imagine this like a tree. So you have a clear path. And then, of course, you have some ramifications that you want to explain a bit. But at the end of the day, you are like making a tribute to this main thing that you want to express. Okay, so it's easy to imagine in that way. You want to use simple data. We will really focus on that in some slides, but you want to use simple data when you are presenting. And this is important. You can try to imagine, like in the talks that you have listened, not necessarily here along the year, which one has where you have seen a very good skill of presenting, or the main message was clear and it was immediately to you to understand, okay, she or he is talking about that, and I understood the main topic and I understood the problem. I did not understand how they solved the problem, but I understand the problem and why it's important. Because in a lot of technical talks, especially when you are in seminars, for example, probably you will get lost. It's not your topic, it's not your expertise, and it is a professor, and it's presenting you the last 10 years of work. So it's really hard for someone, like in 1 hour, 45 minutes, oh yeah, following, I understood everything. This is not true. But at least you can try to understand the broad problem, the narrow problem, what they did in a simple way, and then why this is important and why this is opening a path or new research lines or whatever, okay? This is something that we will practice tomorrow, exactly that. So what we will see in this second part is the through line or the thread or the main tree or whatever, how to adjust the message to the audience. This is a very important thing. Voice, body, the rhythm, movement, high impact slides. We will see some tips about that, and how you can practice to make very good presentations. And you have to be prepared also for the questions. You need to have a strategy for the question that you probably will be asked. When you are giving a talk and no one asks you anything, probably it's because they did not follow what you did. So when you get some question, it's because someone understood what you were trying to present. And then you can have different kind of questions, mean questions, good questions, questions for the people sitting to get seen, like look at my question, my work. This also can happen to you. Someone to try to steal the thunder, you see? Okay, so this can happen. So you need to be prepared for these kind of things and know how to answer. So the first, the through line. So you have the hook, ¿cierto? The opening hook. So you can start by surprising fact, anecdote, etc. Then this, you have to be very careful, and this depends a lot on the audience and how serious is the moment where you are presenting stuff. For example, in a conference, I have seen, I remember, I cannot say the name, but a professor that he was comparing cavity QED with a marriage, and it was like the husband, the wife. It was a terrible way of presenting the thing. And but at the end, I have never forget that talk, because it was so bad, the example on the comparison, that it was like very, I never forget what he was trying to explain. So you have to be careful. He was a very old, unknown professor, so he didn't care at the end of the day. You see, he has this freedom. Okay, I do whatever I want if you are here because you want to listen to me. Otherwise, you just go away and it's up to you. You see? But for example, another example, way more personal. Like 3 weeks ago, I was invited to give a talk on science. It was not this kind of talk about tips of scientific communication, but was about how social media can help or not in the pensamiento crítico. How to say that in English? Yes, that. Okay. So so I was one of the CEOs of the Dentsu company in Japan was presenting first, amazingly, and then it was me, and then it was the CEO of TikTok Latam, so big names, and me in the middle. Okay, so I try to do the best, because of course everything that I am teaching you and what I do in social media is because of my own studying. I mean, I don't have any diploma or whatever to claim that I know about this stuff, just my experience. So I started, I give the talk, and then this guy show up, and he's as I say, the CEO of TikTok Latam. And he said, okay, now, so we have here about quantum physics and how to communicate. Well, now we will talk about something more nicer and happy. And I was there saying, okay, you cannot do, I mean, it's really rude to do that, to make the people to get attention now to you in order to diminish the other person that was just before. I mean, you could have done the same thing, saying, okay, this is very interesting. How can you explain quantum physics to a broader audience? Well, and now I will talk, and it's the same thing. You see? So you don't need to do that, especially when you are the person like in front talking. Try to see this thing. You can build up from other lectures. For example, I have another professor, a very good friend, and he was speaking at the last of a whole week conference. So he added his talk, he started his talk saying, I have seen the value of this talk, and then he started. It was super good, because then first, the other professor that were speaking in that conference, they knew that he was paying attention, another professor paying attention to another professor, which is not very usual. And so at the end, everyone was remember his talk, because he was like building his talk from the valuable things on the previous lectures. You see, this guy from the TikTok was horrible. And of course, everyone knew and understood what he was trying to say, and was really a bad idea. Some other people like to use like humor, like a joke or whatever. Again, you have to be very careful with the humor, because some people, I don't know, if you make a political humor in a conference, you can have problems, and the people can lose you from the very beginning. Okay, I don't want to listen to this guy because of his way of thinking or expressing or whatever. So you have to be careful with that, okay? Then you need to present your broader problem in your, my recommendation when you are, for example, asking to give a seminar, you need to spend the 5 first minutes in the broaden problem, narrow problem, and what you will present. Because then, as I said, if people they just fall asleep and they cannot follow any longer, at least they got this important part of your communication, okay? So the broaden problem is important. When you are like defending your thesis, Like either it's like the private defense or the public defense. In some places we have private and public. You need to know the broader problem. A lot of thesis defense has this problem that they just start to describe their work that we have seen in some previous slide, but they don't tell you the broader problem. So as a professor in the commission, what is the message that you are receiving? This guy has no idea what is the broader problem of the community or why the team is doing that job that you are supposed to do the last 2 or 3 years. So it's a bad message. You need to know the broader problem, you need to know the narrow problem, and you need to know the implications of what you are doing, okay? Well, the central idea. Explains how you develop your work. This is, of course, is important. It's part of the presentation, especially in conference. And then the outcome, okay? What key message you want the audience to take home. So the idea here is more or less one clear idea per slide. This helps a lot when you are constructing a presentation. So the story spin, you want to say something, this is like the structure, like before. So the broad problem, narrow problem is the before. You are describing the problem or your field or whatever before your findings, this is the thing. Then you are describing the now, but now I came up with this idea on my team or whatever, but we came up with this and we know how to solve that, and this is going to be important because of this is the now part of your presentation, and then the after is the implication, the impact, what do you want. For example, in the abstract, you have all of this all together in the abstract. You have the narrow, the broad and the narrow, the now, and then why it's important, implications, perspective. This is all in the abstract, okay? So it connects with what we saw exactly some slides ago. Then, as I said, you need to know your audience. For example, it's not the same if you are giving a seminar. The seminar is a very good example. If you are giving a seminar for the physics department where you have different fields and professors doing different things, then you need to broaden your whole presentation, because you don't want these people who has no idea about your specific field to be lost in the first 2 minutes. So you need to know your audience. Then it's different if you are asked to give, for example, a seminar specifically for the quantum optics group of the university. Then okay, you don't need to explain all the weird stuff about quantum mechanics and you just go directly to your point or way faster. But you need to know that. Then you need to know in the seminar, like 80% are students, 10% are professors, all the way around. Just professors, and there are just some students that can come and stay with you in your presentation, because this is important again. If if they tell you, no, 80% are students, then again, you lower, you open the scope, and you try to catch the people's attention on why what you have done these last 10 years is important for the physicists, so to say, you see? So examples of that, when you are, obviously, when you are communicating with a reviewer, for example, of your paper, this is another story. When you are answering back to a reviewer, even if you are super mad because the guy didn't understood your paper, still when you answer, it's like, we thank the referee because of his point of view that can help us to enrich our presentation. And okay, this is the way that you have to be very polite in that sense, okay? So depends a lot on your audience, on how you will communicate your stuff. Example of that, applying for fellowships, job positions, specialized seminars, or when you are like writing for a grant. The same, a grant, I don't know how things work in Brazil, but in Chile, some grants are just arriving to a broadened panel. So again, if you are not broadened enough, you can miss these experts panel that are trying to judge whether your project is good or not, you see? For example, in the US, when you are applying for PhD positions with grants specialists, like the Fulbright and stuff like that, this is super important. Your presentation letter, well, it has a lot of steps, but they are very important. Okay, you can have colleagues, but not a specialist, this I already say. Okay, this I say all of them, okay? So something that is good, especially for the general public, is to use analogy, simple data, clear and appealing visuals, okay? but you need to know your audience. This is the very basic. You cannot arrive to a seminar and ask 5 minutes ago, like 5 minutes before you start, okay, this is full of a student, and I didn't know because I didn't ask. This is a mistake, and you can avoid that mistake. Okay, transitions that maintain the through line. Okay, here you need to, when you are giving a presentation, you need somehow to connect with what you have just said in the previous slide, because as again, you have like a thread, like a through line, like a tree, and you want this to follow. You can, as I said, you can explain a bit in one ramification, but at the end, you have a clear path on what you want to present and how you want to present it. So it's good to use some good transitions to maintain this in mind. The important thing here is because of that, this means that, that's why the next step is. This kind of connectors helps a lot in a presentation. And I, myself, I try to repeat the central idea every 3 or 4 slides for people not to get lost, for example. Not necessarily like writing, but just saying aloud, okay? Some principles for effective slides, so 1 idea per slide. Title with a message. This is super, so you can communicate in many ways when you are giving an oral presentation. You can communicate by the stuff that are there, by what you are saying, by your body language, whatever. So this is important when you have the title of some slide, try to say something with the title. For example, technical noise dominates above 10 kilohertz. Detector saturates above whatever. Model reduce errors to whatever. This gives you information. Why this is important? Because you will have some people like paying attention to you, and then in 1 second, yeah, my mom, my sister, my whatever. And then, oh, I forgot to send an email. Whatever, this can happen, and it's normal, and you cannot expect everyone to be listening to you. This won't happen. But when they, oh, okay, I come back to the presentation, they will be lost, of course, because they have just lost 5 or 6 minutes of your presentation, but they can read. And when they see a title explain what you are trying to explain orally in your presentation, this helps a lot into the reconnection with your talk. So it's a very good way to have these meaningful titles. Minimal text, avoid paragraph. Of course, this is not the idea of this lecture because, but for when you are trying to present, for example, your experiments and stuff like that, try to avoid long sentences. In general, it's more valuable like figures and like these kind of visuals that you can just see them and try to understand, okay, this is the interaction with that and this is the Hamiltonian. You can have ways to do that. Of course, it's more job to you because the easiest thing is just to put the same figure of a paper or whatever and just put the same paragraph, but this is not good for your audience, okay? Image over text, readable graph, okay, this is important. This is another mistake, very normal, very common in presentation of thesis presentation especially, that they put a graphic and no one can read the graphic. I mean, they can just see the lines of the graphic, but the X is impossible to read, the numbers as well, the label also, the colors. So you need to take attention of these details, especially if it's your thesis defense, you need to pay attention on that. Yeah? Okay. Equations include equations, in my opinion, only when they are central to the message. What I always get in this part of the lecture, some questions, is about theoretical people, because of course all the work is theoretical, and then it's way harder to understand which equations I show and which no. What I try to give the same advice all the time is that you have to, the important thing is the flow. If you really need to put all the steps to arrive there, okay, go ahead, because I understand there is no other way. But if you can jump from here to here and just talk about this, then go and do that instead of giving all the equations that allows you to arrive to your result, okay? Visuals that works, simple diagrams, inputs, process, outputs. For example, in in my team, and I know that this is very common in many teams, the first figure is a diagram of what you are going to do. If it's a cavity QED, you will see the cavity, something that represents the Hamiltonian, the losses process, but the first figure is a diagram of what you are trying to present. Even in theoretical papers, it's the same. Side-by-side comparisons. This is also depends on, of course, in the topic. But for example, if you are trying to say, okay, we have achieved 5 dB of squeezing below shot noise, then it's good for the reader. Okay, but this is how I compare this to the state of the art. So it's good to have a little like table or something to say, okay, up to now, this is what have been done, and now this is my result, and you can compare easily what you have done. Direct annotations, here arrows, circles, instead of distant legends. Try to talk more on that is good. The color palette, la paleta de colores, that's also important in your presentation. When you see presentation, so again, you have many ways of communicating science when you are giving an oral presentation, and the slides is also a way to communicate. And when the slides are with a lot of like highlighted colors, it's hard for you, like it's tiring to your eyes and to your minds. And you have ways to choose paletas de colores, color palettes, in order to construct better your sentences or whatever, but not like abusing of the tiring of your audience, especially when you are in a conference and you have classes like this one all day long, or one talk after another, after another, after another. Of course, you sense the people when they give you presentation that are not so bright, so to say. The voice. Okay, so here you have different things. Okay, one is the pause. Okay, make pauses when you are talking. This is important. So here, there are people like me. I like to talk fast, and this is what it is. I try to make pauses, but at the end it doesn't work. But it's important to make pauses, because you can have the other way around, and this also happens with some experience with the students defending their thesis in general. Like you have the impression that they cannot like breathe anymore until they finish a sentence. This is like the audience, you want to give them water. This is the thing, like, please just calm down a little bit, take some water, and keep going. Like, because they are nervous, I understand that, but that's why you need to practice. If you think that your thesis defense is going to be a success and you never practice because you're a genius, this is not going to happen. In the normal case, you need to practice what you are doing. The same for us. This lecture, I have given this lecture several times, and still sometimes my tongue gets mixes and stuff. This is normal. But you need to practice your stuff. You cannot just be, this is like, you need to be, okay, at some point, you want your talk to be like, seen like natural. Like, I know where I am talking, so then I can just talk to you all day long about what I have done. This is one way. But the other way is thinking that if you are like not preparing and you are being like not having the respect that you need to have to your audience, this is bad, because then you can have like a really cheaty exposition, and everyone, they don't know what to do. I mean, I keep hearing you. I just get lost in my WhatsApp, o ¿cómo se dice? Cuando te da pena algo. When you are like feel like embarrassed about the person who is giving the talk and you don't know what to do, how to help. This also can happen. So you need to pay attention of this and to breathe and to make pauses. The pitching also, vary your tone, emphasize ideas. This is important also. I don't know if you have the experience to be in a talk with a person that doesn't not change the tone of the voice. It's super hard to follow. You follow asleep, and it can be the result of the lifetime. It can be a novel lecture or whatever. But if the tone is like all the time like this, you fall asleep. You are tired. We are all tired, believe me. So you need to like try to emphasize this with your voice. The cadence also. Use short sentence. Avoid filler words. I mean, you can try to use this thing in your benefits for the people to follow what you are trying to communicate. The emphasis, try to pronounce keywords more slowly and clearly. All of this important when you are trying to communicate. Also, this not abuse of the pointer. This is also tiring sometimes when they're like this all the time. You don't know what is happening. Then another thing which is important: the body posture and eye contact. Okay, so here neutral posture. So normally when you are in a real course of soft skill with someone who really knows, so you will be teaching like you have your feet like a bit open and the same like size of your cadera. I don't know how to say that in English. Then you have your back like this, and then also they recommend you a bit before of the talking to do some powerful postures. This like opens the breath, the chest. So this is really good. You see, like to make movements, to also make this kind of noise with your voice. This is important. It's important. Some people also scream before, and this is also valid. Why not? Anyone knows how that works better for you. But at the end of the day, your body is also communicating something. If you are like this, and like this, and like that, what you are communicating at the end is that you have a lack of confidence. And then you don't know, as the audience, you don't know because you are this way and this is normal to you, or because you don't know what you're talking about. So the impression, I mean, it's a bad you are communicating something which is not good at the end of the day when you are presenting. So this helps the movement, okay? The active hands also, to point, to move, to go, not too much either, because some people use this all the time and go back and forth, or like scream when they are talking, and at the end this is worse, because this means that you are trying to audience to take the attention to you because your message is not important enough, or your physics or whatever. This applies to many other things. So it's important to have like an equilibrium on how you are using your body. The eyes contact is called the V-shaped gaze. So you try to look around. You try to look people. And it's good to make eye contact with some of them, not to all. You cannot go in like this all the time. This is not good either. But it's important to try to see your audience. So, for example, when I was a student, some people were giving you the tip of looking back there, like in a point, you don't get nervous, but at the end it's bad because you don't make the contact with the people that are there listening to you. So it's important to look, to change your mind, your eyes, and to move a bit, okay? Move with purpose, of course. Try to mark transitions, draw the attention where needed, be mindful of closing. This is an important thing. And the same thing about the talking aloud too much or moving too much. At the end, closings are also important at the end of the day. Especially when you are in conference or more serious environment. If your clothes or your way of dressing is like gathering all the attention besides the message of your work, then you have a problem. This is a super thin line. There is no rule for that because of course, depends a lot on how you feel comfortable also with yourself. So this is is a gray area. But in general, the rule is that. So if you feel your outfit will gather all the attention to you rather than to what you are trying to communicate, then think twice. This is just that, okay? And also this works a lot. It's kind of tiring, but it's really working to practice with a camera. Sometimes you can just put a camera, your phone, and to try to practice, for example, the 3 first minutes of your presentation, and you can see your body. Okay, I think I am like this, but at the end I am like that. And so this helps a lot. It's like a mirror. Well, you can also practice in front of a mirror, but the good thing about recording is that you can just go back and see some mistakes, okay? Power pose and humor, as I said. Okay, a lot of people this power pose some minutes before starting. The humor, the anecdote, as I said, you can, but you have to be careful. You need to know the audience, you see, because otherwise it can turn very badly, okay? And this is important. If it doesn't flow, skip it. So, for example, maybe you don't feel comfortable with either, neither giving some anecdote or making some humor. You don't feel comfortable of that, and that's fine. So you have to, the important thing is that your presentation flows. This is the important thing, okay? To practice, you have to be smart and with purpose when you practice. So the content, speak the script out loud without looking. So for example, a lot of people, some of you maybe are not good presenting like orally and they try to memorize the thing, and this is fine. There are ways to present your stuff, you choose which one. But at the end of the day, when you are giving the talk, the ideal is to be looking to your audience. So it's important to repeat the content that you want to communicate. The time, you need to be careful with your timing. There are conferences where they just cut, so they don't give you more time, that's it. But at the end, it's good to have your timing in mind and to try to see how you are doing and try to give some minutes for questions. In my experience, this works very good for me, that I practice very well the 3 first minutes of my presentation. In my case, if the first 3 minutes goes well, as I understood of I have imagined that to be, then the rest follows. If I get nervous the first 3 minutes and there is something that I wanted to say, but I didn't say that I wanted to use it later, it's a disaster. So I practice a lot these 3 minutes. Of course, I practice at least 1 or 2 the whole thing, but the 3 first minutes I do a lot. And also the last slide, something that happens to me very often, because as I said at the beginning, I give a lot of dissemination talks, and sometimes I forget which one is the last slide. So I'm going like this, and then thank you, and I didn't remember that it was coming. So then there's a bad thing about how to close the thing. So it's important. So for example, now in my presentation, I am adding like a sign to me. This is the last one you have to cut here. You see? Do not improvise. It is important to practice the thing that you are supposed to communicate, and practice with people who will give you feedback. Again, if you are like presenting to another, for example, one way of, I think they are important too, but you can present your talk, for example, to the other work team, to the other students. And of course, you will have some feedback from them, but they know what you are doing. They work in the same team. It's not the same as presenting to the team next door. You see? So it's important to have different kind of feedback when you are presenting. And this is very important to prepare for the questions. When you are a student, I will say that more probably you can get very nervous when the questions are coming. Either because it's in your thesis defense, or if because it's in a seminar, internal seminar, general seminar, or a conference in some school, or a talk in a conference or some school. But at the end, you need to prepare for question because it will happen, okay? So first, start with a short answer. So for example, someone asks to you, okay, but I don't know, yeah, I'm just inventing things, but like, I didn't understand your process here on how you did that. Try immediately to find a short answer and then expand. This is a very good way of give the supporting data or reason. Of course, you need to do that if you are going to answer someone, I don't know, why your state is a focus state and it's not any other kind of a state. So you need to know where the focus state, I don't know, decays in this way, and we have seen that the thing decays in the same way, whatever, okay? Return to the central idea. You are the one giving the talk. So if you don't feel comfortable with the question, or the question is like drawing the attention into somewhere else, you can bring the central idea back. Thank you for this, because what we have done, this applies because I don't know what. So you can try to bring back your central idea. Okay, and situations that are a bit more complicated. What happens if you don't know? Okay, this can happen. Of course, you can be like giving a talk, a seminar, and someone can ask you something that you don't know. And then what you do. So in my experience, my advice will be to try to give a reasonable conjecture. Like, okay, I'm not sure about that. We have not explored idea, but I think it has to be similar to this. So can we keep discussing after in the coffee break? These are way like faster to just get rid of the don't know nervousness. of when someone asks you something that you don't know, okay? But it has to almost to follow a kind of this. You try to give some examples that you think that might be related, promise to check, promise a discussion, whatever, okay? Off topic. Also, this also can happen a lot in presentation, that what happens is someone asks you something that is not related to your work, because there are people that will ask you things to grab the attention to them and to their work. And so this can happen. So again, you need to have some ways to try to come back to the main course of your presentation. This depends a lot on whether you can be interrupted or not. For example, in a seminar not long ago, a postdoc was giving a seminar, and in my opinion, some professors were really mean, asking things that it was not important to the talk, and they were interrupting the talk. So one, I remember that, no, but what is taking data in physics? Data in physics, we can discuss this later. Please just leave the guy to finish his talk. He's a postdoc, he's nervous. It's obviously an effort for him, or it's one of the, it's not easy when you are presenting and you see that the half of the audience are all the professors. It's hard. So you also, as a professor, you need to recognize which is the moment to ask something, but some of them do not. So then you need to be prepared. So then you can answer things like, I will note that, I will come back this in a few slides. Okay, just wait for me a second, because in 3 more slides, I will have more space to go to this question, and you try again to take the attention back to you and to your message, okay? And also you can face some questions that are hostile, like people that really mean bad things to you and to your work. I have seen that in conference and in seminars. I have seen people really opening the back and say, I did this paper in the year of I don't know who, and you didn't cite me because I don't know what. So this can happen. And also can happen that someone in the audience say, okay, but I don't trust your result. It seems badly done. It's not so usual, but it can happen. So it's important to know. So again, this is more also like a recipe. You sense them. You can rephrase the question more neutral without the value that the person add, because that's valid to do. And then you just answer the technical part, and that's it, and you move on. But you need to be prepared. I remember now that when I was giving this lecture for the first time with some students in Chile, I remember that one of my students was in front here presenting, and he had to start twice. And then I talked to him, and I said, what happened? Why did you have to start again? And he said, no, they were mean people looking at me, my classmate being mean to me. This can happen to you. And believe me that you can be a professor in a conference, and still you can see the professor that doesn't like you too much, and then talking to the side and making fun or laughing. This can still happen to you in this stage. So you need to try. This is something that I don't know if I put it somewhere else. Yes, to try to practice with distraction. This is also good. Try to practice with some friend and ask your friend, like, do faces or like write some message, something that can distract you and that can help you to keep going, independent of how your audience is reacting to your talk. You see? So another visual, I am almost finishing. Some other visual tools, QR codes. This is very now like in fashion in some talks. So if you want to present, for example, papers, or you want to highlight your group or whatever, you just put a QR codes for the paper, for the web page, for whatever. Yeah. Reference on a slide. This is also important. It's not good when you give a presentation and all your references are at the back of the presentation. If you are talking about, and for example, Michel today morning, if he's talking about the life and death of the Schrödinger cat, the reference has to be there. Otherwise, you will never remember at the end of a talk of an hour, where was this paper? Okay, I knew this one is the one that I wanted to know, but I don't know. No, it has to be there, like very clear. Slides numbers also helps a lot. Well, check for spelling errors. This is very important, especially for you students. When you include a graphic, you need to know how to explain the graphic. You cannot be in your thesis presentation or in a seminar having a good graphic there with some curves and whatever. You don't explain it, and then someone asks you, okay, what does it mean, this? And then you don't know. This is really bad. In that case, if you cannot explain a figure of your own research, then don't put the figure or the graphic. But it's the worst that can happen, that you are there and you don't know how to explain your own graphic. This is terrible. It's a huge mistake. Okay? Okay, and that's it. I am almost in time. Do you have any questions? Well, if you don't have, you can also ask me later. The idea tomorrow will be to do the following. This was my plan. I wanted to go through this, which is not long. I think it will take me like half an hour, which is way more about how you structure a paper. I know that some people has this kind of soft skill training here, but not all of you, so I will go through. But it's not too long. I think it will take me half an hour. And then the idea is for you tomorrow to bring a paper. Bring a paper in the computer, whatever you want, or your poster, but try to, I want you to work in a short presentation, like 3 minutes presentation, when you can try to understand what is or describe what is the broader message, the narrow message, the key, the key message that what you are going to want to explain. And then the idea will be to work in that tomorrow, and then on Thursday to present to your mates here. 3 minutes presentation. I will not if some people want to volunteer, this is the best, because of course we don't want to make anyone to feel uncomfortable. But try to see this like practicing. You are practicing in front of people that are learning the same thing as you do, and some people that have brought posters. You can also use the same poster, or the idea of the poster, or the PDF of the poster. No, that one no. I prefer you to make like 3 slides, like 3 minutes slides, okay? So this is what we will do tomorrow. Okay, that's it.